Welcome, everyone. Today, we are diving deep into the incredible wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita's fourth chapter. We're going to explore one of its most powerful ideas, how getting the right kind of knowledge can completely change the way we act every single day. Let's jump right in. This whole chapter really boils down to one central question, and it's one I think we can all relate to. How is it possible to be fully engaged in the world, to do our jobs, raise our families, live our lives, without getting all tangled up in the stress and the results? How can we act and yet somehow remain completely free inside? Well, that is the secret we are going to unlock today.
So the very first thing Krishna tells Arjuna is that this isn't some brand new philosophy he just cooked up. Not at all. He's simply pulling back the curtain on an ancient, timeless truth that has, been lost over the ages.
What we see here is Krishna establishing the divine origins of this wisdom. It's pretty amazing. He explains that he first taught this yoga to the sun god, who then passed it to his son, who then passed it to his. It's like this sacred chain of knowledge passed down through history. But, over vast periods of time, that chain was broken. So now, right there on the battlefield, Krishna is restoring it for Arjuna, and, by extension, for all of us.
Now, as you can probably imagine, this creates a little bit of a logical puzzle for Arjuna. He's human, just like us, and he asks a very practical, down-to-earth question.
Right here, we see the heart of Arjuna's doubt. He's basically saying, whoa, hold on, Krishna. You're my friend, my cousin. You were born recently. The sun god lived ages and ages ago. How could you have possibly taught him? And Krishna's answer is just profound. He explains that while they've both lived countless lives, he, as a divine being, remembers every single one. Arjuna, as a mortal soul, doesn't.
This whole idea leads us straight to the concept of the avatar. Krishna explains he isn't born in the same way we are. He says, I am unborn, and my nature is imperishable. He chooses to manifest in the world through his divine energy, his yogmaya, not through the typical cycle of birth and death. But the big question is, why?
This quote explains it all. It's the mission statement. Krishna descends as an avatar to protect the good, to challenge the wicked, and to re-establish dharma, that cosmic balance and righteousness. He says he appears, age after age, whenever that delicate balance is thrown into chaos.
Okay, this brings us to the absolute heart of the chapter, the secret of action itself. Krishna breaks down this really complex idea into three simple categories to help us understand how to act without getting trapped by the outcome. So understanding these three terms is absolutely crucial. Karma is right action, doing what you're supposed to do. Vikarma is wrong action, the stuff you shouldn't do. But the real secret, the key to freedom, lies in that middle one, akarma, action in inaction. This is the art of performing your duties perfectly, but without any emotional attachment to the outcome or that little voice of ego that says, I'm the one doing this. It's basically the ultimate state of mindful work. Now, this might sound like a riddle, right? But think of it this way. To see inaction in action is to hit what modern psychology calls a flow state. You're completely absorbed in what you're doing, acting with total focus and skill, but your ego, that part of you that's constantly worrying about success or failure, is just silent. You're like a pure channel for the action itself. That inner stillness, even when you're super busy, that's the freedom of akarma.
Achieving that perfect state of detachment. Well, it sounds amazing, but also pretty difficult, right? So what's the tool that makes it possible? Krishna gives us this incredibly powerful metaphor, the fire of knowledge.
This verse is just so beautiful and clear. True knowledge, understanding your true self and the nature of selfless action, it works just like a fire. It doesn't stop you from doing things, but it incinerates all the binding consequences. The stress, the anxiety, the ego, all that's left is the pure, clean, liberating act itself.
Then Krishna expands this idea of yajna, or sacrifice. He explains it's not just about a literal fire ceremony. No, any action you perform in a selfless spirit of offering becomes a form of yajna. So, whether it's through giving away things, the discipline of yoga, controlling your breath, or even just the dedicated study of scriptures, these are all sacred paths. It basically reframes our entire life as one big potential offering. But here's where he establishes a clear hierarchy. Of all these different types of sacrifice, he says the sacrifice made in knowledge, the jnana yajna, is the absolute highest. And why is that?
Because while material things are finite and run out, the wisdom you gain from true knowledge fundamentally changes who you are. It culminates in a kind of unshakable inner peace.
So, how does all of this come together into a practical path we can actually walk? How do we go from being confused and doubtful, just like Arjuna was, to becoming a decisive and peaceful karma yogi?
Well, Krishna actually lays out these really clear steps for us. It all starts with shraddha, faith. Then comes controlling the senses and dedicating yourself to finding real knowledge from a wise teacher. With that knowledge, you can then cut through all your doubts and finally become established in karma yoga, that beautiful art of selfless, liberating action.
And he gives a pretty stark warning here. Doubt. Doubt is the great destroyer. He says that a person who is just consumed by doubt, who lacks faith, finds no peace and no happiness, not in this life or the next. The first real enemy we have to conquer is the doubt that lives inside our own hearts.
And so we end with Krishna's powerful final command to Arjuna in this chapter. It is a true call to action. He tells him to take this sword of knowledge, destroy the doubt that's paralyzing him, and to rise up and act. And that's a message that resonates just as strongly with all of us today.
Which leaves us with a final question to really reflect on. If every single selfless act can be a sacrifice, a sacred offering, what is the yajna of your life? How can you transform the things you do every day into a path of knowledge and freedom? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.